Good morning, good afternoon, good evening based on your time zone. So this is continuation video of our LWC interview series. So let's get started. The first question of this video is, what is data binding in LWC? Data binding in LWC is the mechanism that connects JavaScript data with the HTML template. Again, this is very frequently asked question, and before moving forward, let me tell you, like, you can download all the questions whatever we are discussing in this LWC interview series from this link. You can go this link I have added on the description as well. You can go and check it out. The next point is, when the data changes, the UI updates automatically, reactively, and in some cases user input can update JavaScript values. So you need to remember, data binding is the mechanism in which the data between HTML and JavaScript is connected. Let's understand what are the types of data binding. One-way data binding, it is supported in LWC. Like we have seen, whenever we update any property in JavaScript, HTML, the UI updates automatically, right? So this is one-way data binding. The other is two-way data binding. It is not by default supported in LWC. What it means is, whenever we update anything in JavaScript, it updates on the UI, which is the HTML. But whenever we update anything on UI, let's say we input any value, it by default does not update on the JavaScript, right? We need to do some workaround for that. We need to use event handler in a way to achieve two-way data binding in LWC, which we are going to see in the next slide. But you need to understand, by default LWC does not support two-way data binding, because whatever we update on the UI does not directly flow to the JavaScript. Okay, so let's understand with the help of an example. So this is JavaScript file, right? Here we can see the name is David. This is one of the property. So whenever this name is updated, let's say to any other value, it will by default update on the HTML. The new value would be displayed on the UI whenever anything updated on the JavaScript. So this is a mechanism, and this mechanism, how the data flows from JavaScript to HTML, is known as data binding. You don't need to write anything here. You just need to understand this is a mechanism. Because of data binding, it is happening. The next question is, what is one-way data binding? So we have seen this data flows from JavaScript to HTML. The HTML displays value of a JavaScript property. If the JavaScript property changes, the UI updates automatically. So we have seen this. This is again the same example. Let's move on to the two-way data binding. What is two-way data binding? It means data flows both ways, from JavaScript to HTML and from HTML to JavaScript. LWC does not support automatic two-way data binding like Aura or Angular. We have other frameworks as well. Their data binding from HTML to JavaScript is also supported, but in LWC it is not supported. But now you have the question, like, whenever we update anything on the input box, how data flows to JavaScript? This is because we need to use some code logic in order to achieve two-way data binding in LWC. How we do that? We add an attribute on the input tag like value property, and then whenever any value is updated, we are using the standard events, which we have discussed in the previous videos as well. We are handling that in standard event, which is on change in this case. By using these two, value and on change, we are achieving, whenever the HTML is updated, the JavaScript properties also getting updated by using these two things. So by using this, we can achieve the two-way data binding, but by default LWC does not support two-way data binding. So this is the demo of two-way data binding. We have the name field and we have the lightning input tag here, right? So whenever the name is updated on the UI, we are using this on change event. Whenever the value is updated, this on change event will be triggered, and this we are updating, we are handling on the LWC by using handle change event, and here we are updating the name again to the new value. So this is how we are achieving the two-way data binding by using handler event. But you need to remember, by default, like if you don't want to use this, you cannot update it on the JavaScript, right? So this is a workaround how you can handle two-way data binding in LWC. Moving on to next question, what is lightning data table in LWC? This is again very important. Lightning data table is most frequently used in LWC, so this is again very important question. Lightning data table is a standard Lightning web component provided by Salesforce that displays data in a table format. It is commonly used to display Salesforce records like account, contacts, opportunities with features like sorting, row selection, inline editing, and actions. So if you want to display any account records or contact records, you need to build a table, right? And this is where this Lightning data table comes into picture. Like whenever you need any kind of table, you need to be using the Lightning data table. So this is the UI how the Lightning data table would look. On this page we can see we have the list of all the accounts. We have the columns, like columns would be the field, account name, rating, and industry in this case. So the UI would look something like this. Let's see some of the sample code here. We have this Lightning data table tag here. We have added some of the key attributes, which is key field, data, columns. So key field is mandatory. We need to have unique identifier of each row, and ID would be the unique identifier. You can give it any other thing. Instead of ID, you can give something like external ID or some unique value so that each row can be uniquely identified. Data is basically the records. Like let's say we have 10 account records, so those would come under data. The column is something we want to display on the table. Like in last example, we have displayed account name, rating, industry. So these are fields of the account. You can customize it or display whatever you need to show on the column, right? And this is JavaScript file. We have defined the column. You can add or customize it, and we are getting the account data from the account controller Apex class. So this is the basic syntax, I would say, for Lightning data table. Now, what are some use cases of Lightning data table? Display a list of accounts, contact, lead, or any other object you want to display it on the UI. You need to have a table. Show search result. So whenever you are searching anything, you want to show the result in a tabular format, right? If you hit enter, you want to show that result on a tabular format, and there you can use Lightning data table. Allow users to edit multiple records inline. So in Lightning data table, you can also update multiple records at the same time by using the inline editing feature. So this is also you can do in the Lightning data table. So whenever interviewer asks how to achieve inline editing of multiple records, your answer would be Lightning data table. It also provides actions like edit or delete directly from a list of records. So if you have, let's say, 10 records, and if you want to delete 5 of them, you can select all 5 and also delete it. So these kind of logic you can implement by using Lightning data table. So these are some of the common use cases. So you need to have this in mind, like whenever if any kind of scenario based question comes, you can able to recall and answer that easily on the interview. So the next question is scenario based question, and scenario based question we will be covering a lot more in this series, but this is one of them, and it is very common in Salesforce interview. Like they give a scenario and they expect you to answer that scenario, what tool you are going to use. So this is one of the scenario based question. The question is, your client does not want pagination. Instead, users keep on scrolling and additional records should be loaded automatically when they reach the bottom of the table. How would you implement it? So let's understand what question means basically. So you have, let's say, 10,000 of record. You don't want to display all 10,000 record at once on the UI because it will make the page slower. So what you want, you can either do pagination, like first you show 10 records and then click on next 10 records. That also you can do, but in this case client does not want the pagination kind of logic. They want, like, if the user is scrolling, then only will display the data. If user is not scrolling, we are not going to show the data. So this will also make the page faster, like we are only showing the user whenever they are scrolling down. So what is the approach in this scenario? Fetch limited number of records from Apex, for example 20 records, display them in Lightning data table. So first we'll only display 20 records. We will enable infinite loading settings. So this is one of the attribute, enable infinite loading on Lightning data table. We need to enable this, And then on the onload more, so this is again one of the attribute. Here we will be going to call the apex method whenever the user loads down. We'll call the apex method again and fetch the next batch of record. So let's say in one batch we only display 10. In another batch we'll fetch again the next 10 batch of records and display them on the UI. While the new records are being fetched, I would display a loading spinner to improve the user experience. So the next 10 batch is fetching, right? So it will take some time to fetch that batch of records. So at that time we don't want user to display just a blank UI. We want to display a spinner so that they will understand this is being loaded. Okay, so this would be the final output. We have displayed 20 account record here. If I scroll down, it will fetch the next batch of 20. It happens so fast that you cannot even see the spinner. But if I scroll, you can see a spinner came up for a quick amount of time and then the data is displayed. On scrolling only, we are able to show the data on the UI. And once all the data is visible on the UI, we can add a message something like no more records to load. Okay, now let us see the code. If I open VS Code, you can see we have used lightning data table. Here we have passed data columns, and we need to enable this infinite loading. Has more records, so it will only take the boolean value. If there is still data, it will return true. If there is no data, like we have displayed all the accounts which is available on the system, then it will be false. On load more, it is again an attribute, and here we are calling the apex class and get the next batch of data. And this load more offset is 20 because we want to show only 20 records at first. And these are some of the attribute. And here we have the loading message. So whenever LWC is calling apex, so in the meantime it will show the loading message, and once the data is received from the apex class, it will display that data. On the JavaScript, we can see we have added columns here. We have used this load account to fetch all the accounts, which is 20, right? Because we don't want to fetch more than 20 in the first go, right? And okay, so we are fetching this from the account controller here. We are storing the result, and we are also if there is more data, we have has more attribute which is coming from the apex class. If there is more data pending, it will be true. If there is no data pending, it will be false. And loading message would be, if there is more record, will show no more records to load. If there is more record to fetch, it will be empty. But if there is no record and the last record is visible, it would be no more records to load, right? Similarly, for handle load more, so once the user scroll down, this handle load more event will trigger, and here also we are again calling the apex class to get the next set of data, right? If you want this code, I'll also add this on the PDF of the LWC interview series, so you can go check the description and you can get the code from there. On the account data service, we have created this wrapper class where we have the account list of accounts as well as this boolean value, because we are using it has more. If there is more record pending, will make it true. If there is no more record pending, will make it false, so that the LWC would know like what is that we have reached the end of the list. We are querying on account and we are fetching all the accounts. We have used offset because we need to only display 20 records, and we are also setting this has more, and we are then sending all the data of this wrapper class to the LWC. So this is how we can achieve the infinite loading. Whenever the user scroll down, then only will display it to the user. So this will make the page very much faster. Moving on to next question, how to display toast notification in LWC. So this is the example of toast notification. Let's say whenever you update anything or created any record from the LWC, you want a success or a failure message on the UI in form of a toast. So this is where we need to use the toast notification in LWC. What are different steps to add toast notification in LWC? Import toast. First you need to import the module using lightning/toast, and then you can show the toast whenever you want based on any button click or any logic. You can show the toast. So this is the syntax of the toast, and you can also see the complete code here. Here we have imported the module lightning slash toast, and then we have written this method show success toast. This is maybe triggered by any button click from which is coming from the HTML. So based on that it is coming, and inside that we have written the toast dot show. The label would be the something which you want to show as the title. Message would be something you want to display on that toast, and variant is success. So we have different kind of variant, like for error you can use variant error. For you can also use info, warning, depending on the requirement. Moving on to next question, what are getters and setters in LWC? So this is again you would be using more frequently in LWC. So first understand what is getter. A getter is a method returns a value whenever the property is accessed. Think of it like a calculated property. So let's understand with the help of an example. You have these two property on JavaScript, right? If you want to fetch the full name, we don't have any property called full name here, right? But if you want to fetch the full name in the HTML, how you can do it? You need to write the get, and this is the syntax of getter. You need to write get full name, and here you can return whatever you want to get, right? So in this case we want the full name. How we can achieve that? We can combine that, this dot first name and then space and this dot last name. So even though we don't have the full name property in the JavaScript, you can able to fetch full name by using curly braces using getter. So this is where getter is used. It is method to return a value. We are returning a value here whenever the property is accessed. So this full name is a property which is different than first name and last name, right? Here we are using getter. So why to use getters? What are some of the use cases? So let's understand that. First is to calculate a value. We have seen in the last example, if we need to get full name, we can combine the first name and last name and send it to HTML. So this is one of the use case. To format data. Let's say the username is in lowercase, right? Username is in lowercase, but you want the uppercase letter. So in that case, you can also use the getter. So from the getter, you can return the uppercase letter, show or hide UI. So based on some logic, you want to display conditionally on the UI. So you can also return a boolean value from the getter. If it is false, it won't display on the UI. If it is true, it will display on the UI. Avoid writing duplicate code. So if you are not using getter and if you want the full name, you need to write the logic at multiple places in your code. But if you have the getter, you can use that getter only to fetch the full name. So it will also help you in creating duplicate logic inside your LWC JavaScript file. Now moving on to setter. A setter is a method that runs when someone assigns a value to a property. It lets you validate data, modify data, perform additional logic. So let's see with the help of example here. So in this example, whenever we are assigning a value to the name, so what setter is doing, setter is updating that name to a uppercase value. Right here we are updating that name to a uppercase and we are storing it into a temporary variable property here, temporary property here, and then we are getting it using this dot return. So what it is doing is, suppose we have this dot name as others. So whenever we fetch a name now in the HTML, it will give me this data. So actually we have the name in the lower case, but we are getting it into a uppercase. And mostly setter is being used with @API decorator, because mostly parent would be sending data to child, and child will update that data, and by using getter we can get that updated data into the HTML. So this is how we can achieve that. And here one more thing, and you can also say we can use getter here, right? We can use getter, but getter is only for reading data, returning data. We cannot set any or update anything on getter, but in setter we can see this name underscore name we can able to update. This is only possible in setter, right? Let's say if you are getting any data from parent, how you can update it into uppercase letter? You cannot do it by using only getter, right? So you have to set it to uppercase letter first into a property, and then you need to return that property to the child HTML component. Now let's see how it is used to validate data. Let's suppose if a parent component is passing any data, and you let's say age, right? And you want to check if it is a positive number or not. So you can write that logic into setter to see if it is a valid number or not. If it is negative number, you can either reject it or assign it a default value, right? You can modify data here. Let's say if you're getting data from parent and it has lot of spaces and you want to remove that, you can do that on the setter. Perform additional logic. So let's suppose whenever a property value changes and you want to perform some extra actions, for example, you might need to calculate another value, update another variable, write a log, or trigger some additional processing. Since setter executes automatically whenever the property is assigned, it's a perfect place for this kind of logic. So I'm not going into much deep into this because this is a interview question and answer series, but I can try to make a dedicated video for this one to make you more clear. Now the next question is, what are differences between getter and setter? Getter is used to read a property. We cannot update anything on the getter. It will only read the property and send you a value. But setter is used to update a property. In setter we have seen we updated underscore name also. So this is possible because setter is designed in that way. Getter only returns a value, right? We have seen if we want to fetch full name, it will only return the full name. But setter receives a value, like it will receive value from the parent component. We are sending anything, setter receives it, update it, and show it on the UI. It takes no parameter. In getter we have seen we don't add any parameter. In setter we need to add one parameter, like if something is being passed from parent, we need to pass that as a parameter. So it takes one parameter. Commonly used for computed or formatted values. So we have seen we can format the value to uppercase, or like we can compute anything like adding first name and last name and making it a full name. We can do on the getter. And setter is commonly used for validation, transformation, or triggering logic that we have seen. Getter would not modify component state. So what is component state? It refers to all the data, variables, or property that belongs to a component and determine what is displayed on the screen. So in getter we are not updating any property, right? So it will not update any component state. But setter can update the component state, because we have seen we have updated underscore name in the last example. So setter can modify the component state, which is the variable, but getter cannot do that because setter is designed for that only, to update and then give the value. So this is it about this video. If you want all the LWC interview question and answer PDF, you can check this link. I have given this link on the description as well. And if you are liking this LWC interview series, just drop me a comment and like this video so that it will motivate me to create upcoming videos. Until next time, take care and bye.